Looking at prehistoric human migration routes, from the vast African savanna to Eurasia. Dramatic environmental shifts reshaped our appearance. As for why East Asians and Europeans look so different, we can't rush to overlay today's maps, because first we must uncover a truth, one that overturns everything people assume. In most people's minds, human evolution is like a costume change game. Tens of thousands of years ago, early humans shivered, stepping onto the freezing European continent. A cold wind blew, the sun dimmed. They should have instantly turned blonde and blue-eyed, with pale skin. But modern genetic archaeology has thrown cold water right in our faces, delivering a shocking conclusion: Europeans only started turning pale within the last 10,000 years. You heard that right, just the last 10,000 years. And before that, the situation completely defied common sense. Those ancient Europeans who braved blizzards and storms, chasing prey across the frozen land, had actually kept extremely dark skin all along. Close your eyes and picture that scene. On a snow-white ice field, dark-skinned primitive hunters, wrapped in thick animal hides, out hunting. The contrast is jarring. Everyone was freezing at high latitudes, enduring the bitter cold, barely seeing the sun all year round. Yet Europeans, over tens of thousands of years, never shed their dark base. Asian continent, things get even more interesting. Early East Asian Homo sapiens also headed north, also walked into the frozen wilderness, enduring extreme cold and snow, while fighting to survive. But East Asians didn't hold out for tens of thousands of years like Europeans, and then suddenly change. Instead, they underwent a different, extremely long, painstakingly gradual independent evolution, evolving into today's richly textured, vibrant yellow skin. That's mind-boggling. Nature dealt the same card. A death sentence of extreme cold and sunlight deprivation. Yet East Asians and Europeans each evolved strikingly different skin tones. You think this is just a superficial difference? Wrong. Scientists flipped open humanity's genetic cards, the tools for deep skin tone. East Asians and Europeans are different. East Asians and Europeans are different. Not copying homework, fully independent problem solving. This isn't copying homework, it's fully independent problem solving. To fully unravel this baffling mystery, we can't just stare at the ice fields, we must rewind time even further. Back to 70,000 years ago. Because no matter how white you think European skin is, or how yellow East Asian skin is, our starting point was exactly the same. That's right, no special treatment, we're all descendants of the same small group of early African Homo sapiens with very dark skin. Back then, every pioneer who walked out of Africa, without exception, wore the same dark armor. This dark base, which would later, in the freezing ages of northward migration, nearly push both Eastern and Western early humans to the brink and threaten their lives. Its true origin was nature's absolute decree issued on the African continent. And here you must know, when these sun-armored pioneers stepped out of Africa's gates, the earth back then was far colder than it is today. The whole world was in the grip of a brutal ice age, with a full 60,000 years still to go before that glacial period ended. Waiting for early humans in East and West would be tens of thousands of years of frozen hell. Let's go back 1 to 2 million years to the East African savanna. Back then, Africa was no picturesque wildlife park, but a living, breathing arena of death. To grab meat on the grassland, you couldn't outmuscle a lion or outrun a cheetah. to hunt by running long distances and exhaust prey to death. Early humans made an extremely bold, even crazy evolutionary choice. Strip det, strip. They decisively shed their thick body hair, covering their bodies with sweat glands. It was a wild gamble at the time. Cooling efficiency maxed out instantly. Humans became the most terrifying marathon killers on the savannah. But don't clap too soon. Everything comes at a price. Losing body hair left large areas of bare skin directly exposed, with no protection, under the equator's blazing sun. That African sun was brutal, it could fry the very ground. That bare, hairless flesh was bound to face a merciless trial. To survive, the body fought back desperately. Pigment cells at the skin's deepest layer went into overdrive, pumping out massive amounts of a substance called eumelanin. These dense pigment cells rely welding a layer of iron armor onto the skin, forging an unbreakable physical defense, absorbing and blocking the vast majority of deadly UV rays. Nature's rules are ironclad: adapt or die. So every surviving early Homo sapiens was forcibly fitted with this extremely dark armor. But if you think this dark armor was just to prevent surface sunburn, you'd be dead wrong. Behind that scorching sun lurked a hidden killer, capable of wiping out populations. It wasn't heat or drought. The real Grim Reaper was UV radiation's microscopic destruction. UV rays have immense penetrating power. If you have no pigment, if you have light skin, no pigment, it can act like an invisible blade, easily piercing the skin down to the microvessels, then completely destroying a vital substance in your blood. Folate. Folate is absolutely essential for reproduction. If folate is destroyed, a population's ability to reproduce faces a high risk of collapse. In ancient times, when food was scarce day to day, losing reproduction meant the whole group went extinct. So, that extremely dark skin wasn't sunscreen. It was humanity's bulletproof vest for survival. Through brutal natural selection, those with very dark skin successfully protected their folate, and thus safeguarded humanity's seed. Until 70,000 years ago, small groups of dark-armored Homo sapiens who stepped out of Africa. They had no idea that this invincible armor, which had saved their people countless times on the equator, would become a death warrant on the unfamiliar continents ahead. Honestly, these pioneers who left Africa wearing dark armor, over the next tens of thousands of years spread out like a vast net, completely plunging into the still-frozen European continent, while another group pushed east and north into the vast and desolate Asian heartland. But no matter which way they went, as they moved further north, their old companion overhead, the sun they'd relied on back in Africa, underwent a fundamental, silent change. Back in Africa, sunlight came straight down from directly overhead, so fierce it could peel the skin off rocks. But at high latitudes, things were completely different. Because of the Earth's axial tilt, the sun's rays could no longer stand tall, like a frail old man. They struck at an extremely oblique angle, struggling through layers of thick atmosphere. During this long refraction, the once fierce deadly UV rays hit a wall of cotton, scattered severely, their intensity plummeting off a cliff. But the early humans heading to Europe or Asia wouldn't immediately notice the sun had weakened. They had no time to look at the sky, because the moment they set foot on this unfamiliar northern land, they faced a killer even more vicious than the African sun. Extreme cold, real blizzards and howling winds, Temperatures dozens of degrees below zero, biting skin, aching down to the bone. To survive in this frozen wasteland, these early Homo sapiens, accustomed to heat, became desperate. They frenziedly hunted mammoths and wild beasts, using stone tools to scrape off thick hides, wrapping themselves layer upon layer with these blood-soaked fur coats. They finally gained a foothold on the ice field and held out against the cold. You think humanity once again used wisdom to conquer nature? Wrong. This seemingly natural act of bundling up to survive secretly pushed them toward the abyss. It completely severed the last connection between humans and sunlight. In short, staying warm meant courting death. Picture that desperate scene. UV rays at high latitudes were already weak to the extreme, and now the primitives were wrapped in thick, airtight animal hides, while their skin still bore that armor. That dark armor forged on the equator, specifically designed to absorb and block UV rays. When the human body was completely sealed off by these two barriers from the faint sunlight, a life or death machine inside ground to a halt. An extremely terrifying chemical reaction was silently interrupted. What was interrupted? A substance called vitamin D. The name sounds gentle. Like a buy one get one supplement at today's pharmacy. But on the ice fields tens of thousands of years ago, this wasn't for wellness, it was a genuine lifesaver, a key hormone keeping the human machine running. In that era when even grass froze solid, land prey had pitifully little vitamin D. You couldn't get enough from eating wild game. The most hardcore and only way to get it was sunbathing. More precisely, by absorbing UV through the skin and synthesizing it in the body. But the situation was utterly desperate. The already weak polar UV rays were first blocked 99% by thick, bulky hides. The tiny sliver of light that remained, barely squeezing through gaps, then slammed into the dark skin and died. Double shielding had welded the UV door shut. The result? The body failed to synthesize this hormone. Vitamin D supply was cut off entirely. When that supply stopped, primitive hunters, relying on raw muscle to fight beasts daily, began to undergo terrifying changes. The answer is chillingly simple. Their bones collapsed. Without vitamin D, calcium absorption dropped to zero. Bones once as hard as steel began visibly softening and becoming brittle. In the camps, adults once strong enough to take on a wild bull, one by one developed severe osteomalacia. With the slightest strain, an arm might snap, trip while walking, and a leg bone would crack. Even more hopeless, fractures wouldn't heal properly, refusing to scab, just festering and rotting. These hunters, once at the top of the food chain, had become porcelain dolls that shattered at a touch. With these strong hunters gone, the camps that were always starved of sunlight began to decline on a massive scale in the freezing wind. Large numbers of adult hunters starved to death in the snow. Desperate panic spread through the camp's lie plague. Who would have thought this dark armor, which had saved early Homo sapiens countless times under the equatorial sun, had now become a death warrant, strangling them, pushing early humans in east and west toward the cliff of extinction. Facing this shared doom, logically, whether they'd gone to Europe or East Asia, they should have all taken the same path of lightening their skin, quickly shedding this deadly dark layer to let some UV in and save themselves. But nature chose this moment to hit the fork in the road. Amazingly, facing the same death trap, these two groups took completely different paths to survive. You'd think, since dark skin was so deadly in the extreme cold, The people in Europe would have been the first to turn pale. Right? Quite the opposite. These Europeans trapped in the deep freeze, over the next tens of thousands of long years, absolutely refused to shed their dark skin. The reason they could survive with this deadly dark skin in the extreme cold wasn't hidden in the sun above, but in the prey on the ground. Since UV from the sky was cut off, they switched tactics, eating the sun directly. Back then, Europe was all glaciers and tundra. Grains, vegetables, fruits, forget eating them. You couldn't even find a blade of green grass. Those dark-skinned early Europeans woke up each day to face a brutally simple, pure meat world. Their daily diet boiled down to 3 words: the hard stuff. They frantically hunted mammoths, chased down herds of reindeer, even went to the coast to catch fat, cold water fish. The survival conditions back then allowed no pickiness, no room for fussiness. What those hunters craved most were the steaming, bloody organs. The moment a beast fell, they'd gut it open, pulling out the massive liver and heart, and swallow them raw, reeking of blood, gulping down all those innards, grease dripping from their mouths. These seemingly savage, these seemingly barbaric, nauseating habits were life-saving elixirs. Don't mind the stench, the organs of these large wild animals, especially that liver packed with goodness, and the thick, absurd fat on cold water fish that wasn't ordinary scraps. It was an enormous natural vitamin D reservoir. The essence prey animals stored their lives. All went to serve those European hunter-gatherers. Early Europeans, through this wild, single-minded pure meat diet, directly ate high concentrations of vitamin D lie a meal. This hardcore move was lie swallowing, moving suns whole, wiping out the supply crisis completely. No need to sunbathe. Their bones stayed rock solid. No need for UV. They could still fight beasts blade to blade in the frozen wilds, since they survived with their mouths alone. Their bodies felt no extreme evolutionary pressure. That pressure to lighten or die. In that desperate situation, dark skin is hardly a flaw, as long as you're alive. The body won't bother undergoing fading mutations. That's why over tens of thousands of years, early European hunter-gatherers could endure the bitter cold with dark skin intact and never turned white at all. Yet at the same time, early East Asians on the other side of the planet had it much harder. Facing the same freezing cold and lack of light, they were forced to come up with a completely different survival answer. The early Sapiens moving into East Asia realized right away they had been dealt a heavy blow. You'd think they could feast on mammoths like Europeans, but East Asia simply lacked such prime, large-scale hunting grounds. As the glacial cold grew fiercer day by day, breathable prey kept dying off, and food sources plummeted. Trying to get enough life-saving vitamin D from the occasional small beast was totally hopeless. When the food path was cut off and nature's dividends reclaimed, early East Asians were pushed to the edge of a cliff. Under teeth-grinding natural selection, rare outsiders appeared, whose genes mutated to make their skin tone just a tiny bit lighter than others. And that tiny bit proved immensely useful. For it was precisely this slightly translucent skin that managed to scrape a faint sliver of weak sunlight from the icy sky, synthesizing life-saving vitamin D inside the body. Today, East Asians. Vibrant light yellow skin came at a bloody price. It was a cruel relay race, spanning tens of millennia. Each generation passed on genes while washing away the deep baseline. Just a fraction more, while nature's ruthless sickle weeded out the rest. Those whose baseline didn't fade enough grew soft bones and couldn't survive the endless cold. Adult hunters fell in the snow by the droves, never to rise again. Only those with slightly lighter skin managed to catch a glimmer of ultraviolet light and barely survived the wind and snow. Passing those genes on, tens of thousands of years formed a bloodless purgatory with no shortcuts and no magic pills. East Asians relied on lives passing down the line to gradually wash away that deep baseline in the ice and snow, ultimately forging this vibrant light yellow skin. Call it evolution? It was bathing in blood through an ice age, while East Asians struggled on and slowly faded. Time quietly reached 10,000 years ago. Those early humans in Europe, who ate meat and survived with dark skin, couldn't keep coasting forever. Fate's abacus never stopped. Those European hunter-gatherers with dark skin were about to face an unguardable, devastating shuffle. A big reset. Around 10,000 years ago, the giant hand of the Ice Age pressing on Earth suddenly lifted. Temperatures soared like a lit firecracker. Large beasts like mammoths perished without even a chance to breathe, falling in massive batches and going extinct fast. These ancient humans who survived by hunting across Europe were utterly stunned. They not only lost their meat but also their sole vitamin D dispenser, those mobile suns. These hunter-gatherers clinging to dark skin were instantly plunged into disaster. Meat was cut off, sunlight terribly weak, and bones growing soft. Everything fell short, and the whole tribe faced extinction by nature. Just as they could barely stand, uninvited guests tramped through the mud, namely, Middle Eastern farmers. With the agricultural revolution, these farming Middle Easterners, carrying primitive light skin genes, migrated north in droves and flooded the European continent like a tide. These farmers brought no peace, only sheer survival pressure. They brought European natives to a dead end because the farming bowl was filled mostly with grain, and grain contained virtually no vitamin D at all. This was like heaven, sealing off their last lifeline. Under Europe's weak, pathetic sunlight, anyone still wearing dark skin couldn't synthesize vital nutrients. The camp's once sturdy adults had bones as brittle as dry firewood and perished. Their only way out was to completely shed dark skin to survive under that dim light. This kicked off a shockingly cruel elimination round. Amidst millennia of wild mixing and brutal pruning, nature stood by with its sickle poised. Dark skin meant instant death, lack of sunlight, plus a complete change in diet. acted like twin raging fires, quickly wiping out dark-skinned genes. Across the European continent, the surviving descendants completed a thorough fading at a breathtaking speed. Those European white people we see today, you think they've been white forever? No, they were actually driven to the brink by nature over the past few millennia. The ultimate product bought with countless generations' lives. Early humans in Europe and East Asia went through millennia of blood and tears, risking their lives, and finally fading successfully. But nature wasn't done plotting. It was only just beginning. Driven to desperation, Europeans fought to survive. In just a few short millennia, undergoing an epic genetic reshuffling. You must realize, East Asians spent tens of thousands of snowy years, with generations giving their lives to barely wash away dark skin. For those early humans staying in Europe, the agricultural revolution arrived like a sudden gale, swiftly destroying their proud hunting lifestyle. Life-saving nutrients in food plunged off a cliff. Nature was brutally cold, giving them no 10,000-year span to slowly turn white, if they couldn't shed dark skin in a very short time. Total extinction awaited the entire European group. Under this high-pressure countdown to death, could their fading speed and genes met East Asians? No, East Asian fading was like a slow stew, grinding the color away bit by bit. But Europeans experienced a roaring bonfire. European whitening didn't rely on the gene pool East Asians slowly brewed. Instead, a brand new, overwhelmingly dominant light pigmentation control gene mutated explosively. It was as if nature saw them facing extinction and, lacking time for craftsmanship, directly administered a fierce catalyst. Over a very brief few millennia, without even lingering on intermediate shades, this powerful new gene combination flashed through them, brushing them into extreme pale white. This reveals an unprecedented biological iron law. Convergent evolution. East Asians and Europeans were sworn brothers wearing dark armor when they left Africa tens of thousands of years ago. Yet once they parted ways into Asian depths and European fringes, they were lie students in two different exam rooms facing the same fatal test of light starvation death, unable to pass notes. Isolated by countless glaciers, they had no contact. Yet amazingly, using entirely different underlying codes, they independently deduced and wrote near-perfect survival papers. East Asians handed in a warm, lustrous light yellow, while Europeans handed in pigment-lacking pale white. This independent evolution, free of interference, created the skin texture we have today versus Europeans. This is just two groups of ancient hunters trapped in glaciers and wilderness, striving to lie on this cruel earth. Everything was submerged, and these events. I believe these events didn't just sweep through Europe. It was only just beginning. This ruthless storm also swept into the heart of Greater Asia. About 10,000 years ago, around the same time as Europeans, early East Asians living in the Yellow and Yangtze basins did something monumental. Instead of copying anyone's homework, they independently domesticated millet and rice. The spectacle was magnificent. The entire East Asian land hit the accelerator, surging at full speed into the agricultural age. Don't celebrate East Asian ancestors eating their fill yet. For those East Asians whose skin had lightened over tens of thousands of snowy relay races, did this mean peaceful times ahead? No, it meant a ruthless life-or-death reckoning. Because agriculture was like a smiling tiger guest. It brought golden millet and heavy rice to keep you from starving, but cold-heartedly severed backup channels, stopping early East Asians from getting hidden vitamin D from nature, hunting in forests or fishing by rivers. They could occasionally chew raw meat for wild compensation. Now, everyone bowed their heads to the dirt, tethered to puddles and mud, toiling from dawn to dusk. Their bowls held only carbs, and life-saving vitamin sources were abruptly zeroed out. The body's alarm sounded immediately. Lacking this dietary compensation, those farmers aching in the fields soon tasted despair deep in their bones. Bones softened, a mere fall meant a fatal fracture. Facing this desperate pass with no room for negotiation, nature issued a direct death order. The skin must be forced to grow even lighter, so the sky's meager sunlight could penetrate unhindered into the bloodstream and synthesize the life straw maintaining bone strength. At this juncture, agriculture wasn't a savior, but a tyrannical catalyst. When people were forced to toil in the sun for their next meal, that fading pain for survival was carved into everyone's bones. Agriculture filled our bellies with grain, while secretly serving as the final, unprecedented catalyst that completed the ultimate shaping of East Asian skin tones. Our light yellow skin, carrying the scent of rice, was forged into its ultimate baseline by the final wild quenching of agriculture's fire. The ultimate foundation forged through sheer intensity. Those who left Africa back then did not head north to suffer, but instead, their Asian relatives who remained in the scorching south faced a completely different destiny. They did not endure the hellish torture of the glacial period. Facing this global wave of agriculture, did they also experience the same fading? No, they simply did not undergo this fading process. When you look today at those distant Asian relatives, namely those who stayed in the Indian subcontinent, and you'll discover an incredible fact. Their skin has retained a very deep baseline. Compared side by side with East Asians who journeyed north to the Central Plains, you can hardly believe, based on what you know, you can hardly believe they shared the same origin, just tens of thousands of years ago. Pondering this, it's quite counterintuitive. Everyone spent the same tens of thousands of years. Time showed no bias. Moreover, these southern brothers and sisters later plunged into the agricultural revolution too, toiling in fields from dawn to dusk, similarly forced to cut off the hidden channel of compensating for vitamin D via hunting meat. Northerners were forced to fade into a light yellow baseline scented with rice. Yet southern relatives stubbornly kept their pitch-black skin without dropping a single shade. Were their bones harder to withstand calcium deficiency? Not at all. Nature doesn't care if your bones are hard. It only looks at the exam paper in your hand. They didn't fade because the exam paper handed to the south hadn't changed a mark in tens of thousands of years. The south lies at low latitudes, a tet zone with no blind spots. The scorching sun hangs overhead daily, pouring down lethal UV rays. For East Asians in the Central Plains, sunlight was a life-saving glimmer, but for relatives in tropical rainforests, that sun overhead was a butcher's knife, constantly trying to burn through their blood and bones. In such a cruel survival-desperate zone, there was no capital to discuss fading, let alone a chance for trial and error. Lower the melanin in your skin, and the lethal UV rays there would instantly pierce your fragile light skin, shattering your folate on the spot, and cutting off your ability to reproduce. This is nature's most calculated, cold-blooded logic. Since lethal UV rays are always there, this dark skin isn't a symbol of backwardness, but the most perfect survival coat locally. They were just making the only correct life-saving choice. This reaffirms a fact: skin color is merely a survival tool, forced by nature to fight the environment. Since skin is entirely a tool forced by the environment, if environment dictates everything, shouldn't skin be whiter the further north one goes to survive? Why did those on Earth, who walked north into the Arctic Circle, the Inuit, fail to become the whitest people on Earth? Logically, under the iron rule of light starvation lightning, Inuits should glow white. Think about it, they inhabit the Arctic ice sheet. Forget lack of light there. Winter brings polar night where not a shred of sunlight is seen. Pitch black for over half a year. In such an ultimate light-starved ice cave, to survive, they should have evolved the most translucent skin on Earth. Did they actually turn white? Wrong. The opposite is true. Look at Inuits today. Their skin isn't white at all, but carries a rather deep brown. Brown. The genetic iron rule nature forced on humanity for millennia completely broke down in the Arctic Circle. What mysterious force could shatter this death setting and let Inuits keep dark skin even in lands of bitter cold and sunless gloom? It is on their dinner tables. Farming is impossible in such a frozen hell, with not a single blade of grass sprouting all year. The Inuit people, generation after generation, subsisted on seal livers and rich whale blubber. This was no delicate cuisine. It was pure, raw feeding. They cut straight into the fat and viscera, all freshly harvested from marine mammals, swallowing huge chunks raw, and within this pungent meat lay a crucial, life-saving magic. That magic was vitamin D. Seal livers and whale blubber were the most immense and pure natural vitamin reservoirs on Earth, while ancient humans elsewhere had to shed their dark coats just to squeeze out a tiny bit of nutrition from weak sunlight. The Inuit feasted wildly. Using primitive methods, they swallowed sunlight bite by bite into their bellies. Since eating raw fat and liver perfectly solved the deadly crisis of nutritional shortage, the body had no reason to keep fading. The Inuit body calculated with extreme precision. Seeing the alert lifted, it hit pause on the fading mutation. Nature only cares about results, not the process. As long as vitamin D is enough, wear whatever skin you lie. By relying purely on raw marine fats, they beat the sunless trap. This proves our bodies are not passive punching bags, but an abacus calculated down to the bone. As long as survival is at stake, they will devise any savage method to fight nature's death blows. And the traces left on us East Asians by this thrilling survival go far beyond just this layer of skin. To endure the unprecedentedly long and harsh ice age in East Asia, nature held nothing back against East Asian sapiens. To be honest, if you thought changing to a lighter skin tone meant passing, you'd be gravely mistaken. In this relentless frozen wasteland, the entire face of East Asians was brutally reshaped by howling winds and blizzards. Many East Asians have unique single eyelids, something Europeans could never evolve, or that hallmark epicanthic fold, Do you think this is merely a coincidence of appearance? No, it is a suit of flesh and blood armor for survival. Imagine the tragic scene back then. Polar gales whipped up ice knife blizzards right into the face. Such extreme environments easily caused irreversible eye frost injuries. The glare reflected off the endless snow could directly inflict fatal snow blindness. Once blinded, in ancient times it meant an immediate death sentence. To protect these eyes meant for spotting prey, early East Asian humans started growing thick layers of fat around the eyelids, forging a thick defensive line around the eye sockets, slitting the eye opening to a narrow crack just enough to spot prey. This was no simple single eyelid, it was clearly evolved from flesh and blood. To protect the fragile eyeball, a natural pair of goggles. At this point you might wonder, why didn't Europeans battling on the same ice sheet evolve single eyelids? The reason is simple. Facing the wind and snow, nature drew a different blueprint for Europeans. Early European humans took a drastically brutal skeletal remodeling route. They evolved exceptionally prominent brow ridges and deep abyssal eye sockets. This undulating skeletal structure is like building a protruding eave above the eyes. No matter how fierce the Ice Age gales blew, they were blocked firmly outside by the towering brow ridges. With this skeletal eave, Europeans naturally didn't need to rely on fat accumulation to protect eyeballs. Two different adaptation plans created the distinct east-west differences in facial dimension today. Besides the eyes, the biting ice and snow left other profound marks on East Asian sapiens. You can pluck a hair and feel it. It is generally much coarser and stiffer than a European's. Modern genetic research has found that a specific variant gene innate to East Asians directly endowed early East Asians with straighter, coarser hair, plus denser sweat glands. On this matter, nature's abacus clicked loudly. Coarse hair protects the scalp from wind and cold, laying a thick snow blanket on the head, and dense sweat glands allowed the body during extreme endurance running and hunting to dissipate heat with maximum efficiency, preventing sweat from freezing inside clothes and killing them. In contrast, nature handed Europeans a completely different set of thermal gear. Look closely and you'll find European hair is generally fine, soft, and slightly wavy, and they often have extremely dense beards and body hair. This is because although Europe's ice age was cold, buffered by Atlantic Ocean currents, it was mainly damp and cold. Early European sapiens took a downy insulation route. Fine, dense body hair acted like a natural woolen sweater in damp conditions, trapping body heat firmly. But in the Asian hinterland where they struggled, this European solution completely failed. Siberia belonged to an extremely terrifying continental extreme cold and dry cold climate with no warm current buffer. Not only were extreme temperatures ultra-low, but howling polar winds swept unobstructed year-round. In such insane, extreme dry cold, if the face grew dense beards, when running in the bitter cold, exhaled breath would instantly freeze on the beard into heavy, sharp ice spikes. These ice chunks would violently tear at hair follicles while running, not only failing to keep warm but actually rotting facial skin over large areas, and even tearing it apart. Therefore, in this wind-ruled, hyper-cold death trap of East Asia, East Asians were forced to shed excess body and facial hair, concentrating all defense power into the coarse, thick snow blanket on their heads. Two cruel rules forged on the edge of death completely shaped today's totally different hair textures between East and West. From skin color to eyelids and every strand of hair. Whether it's dense hair under deep eye sockets, or the coarse snow blanket over thick East Asian fat, this is no coincidence of appearance. This was a brutally independent evolution. Facing the long death trap of the Ice Age, on this day, early humans in East and West, in extreme climates, were forced to hand in two completely different survival exams with their blood. Nature's blizzards and gales ruthlessly carved these two relentless survival rules into the bodies of Easterners and Westerners. Yet, if you think nature alone was this ruthless, you'd be deeply mistaken. Not just this freezing natural environment. Even the plants that early humans domesticated to avoid starvation left stubborn and indelible genetic scars. Deep within this flesh, scars so stubborn they still cannot fade today. Another stubborn scar from plant domestication is actually hidden in water. Once the agricultural era rose, sapiens did fill their bellies through farming, but right after came an unseen, life or death exam. Did you think having piles of grain meant living in peace? Wrong. When people multiply, thousands gathering in large settlements eating, drinking, and excreting daily. Once clear and clean water sources instantly turned into stinking poison. Rivers and wells were full of deadly bacteria, causing severe diarrhea and fatal dehydration. To survive, driven to desperation, Europeans could only find a way out. From fermented fruits and grains, they turned brewing into their ultimate lifeline, drinking low-alcohol beverages as water. Every adult in the camp, whether farmers working the fields or hunters, chugged massive amounts of alcohol for safe hydration. This wasn't drinking. This was drinking for dear life. It was as if Europeans used their livers as a wildly operating, broken down fin tube. As a wildly operating, decrepit water fin tube, brutally filtering out toxins in the alcohol, just to trade for a mouthful of water. Under thousands of years of this kill or be killed survival fin tube of drinking alcohol as water, those who couldn't handle alcohol toxins were ruthlessly cleared by natural law. Surviving Europeans were forcibly evolved with robust alcohol-degrading capacities, yet this life-risking survival logic never played out in East Asia. East Asian sapiens completely avoided this fatal dead end. They independently evolved another survival route: boiling water. No matter how many deadly bacteria lurked in the water, a bundle of firewood boiling it rolling hot killed them all cleanly. With boiled water, East Asians had no need to chug alcohol daily for safe hydration. Holding a steaming bowl of plain boiled water, their lives were saved. The result of this vastly different drinking habit meant that, lacking the massive life or death culling of European mass drinking, nearly half of all East Asians have permanently retained a defect, a mutation in their alcohol metabolizing genes. Nature saw you didn't need to drink poisoned water, and couldn't be bothered to clean up your alcohol parts, since they were already broken. Once alcohol enters the stomach, because of this fatal flaw, highly toxic substances cannot be broken down and pile up wildly in the bloodstream. This led to the famous Asian flush syndrome. Face turning red, neck swelling, and heart pounding lie a drum upon drinking. Many think this means high tolerance or good health, but it's nothing of the sort. It is entirely the body screaming a poisoning warning. This body is desperately telling you your genes simply lack the parts to break down toxins. When urged to drink at banquets today, we might ponder what cruel history lies behind this flushed face. That's no drinking culture. It is the life and death imprint of two vastly different survival routes, engraved immutably deep in the flesh of East Asians. The trap nature laid during the agricultural era wasn't just contaminated water sources. When you turn your gaze to terrifying plagues, especially sudden outbreaks from crowding, you see just how vicious nature's blade really is. agricultural settlement brought a terrifying phenomenon: the high-density mixing of humans and livestock. Livestock mixing. Wild beasts once living peacefully in forests were now stuffed into backyard pig pens and cattle stalls, or simply kept right beside living quarters. To parasites and viruses on animals, this was practically a fry delivery buffet. Thus, terrifying cross-species plagues began raging across the globe. Smallpox, measles, influenza, death gods capable of delivering fatal blows to large settlements within days, poured wildly at humanity via sewage and breath mixed with livestock. To ancient humans worldwide, this wasn't just ordinary sickness. It was an all-sweeping extinction catastrophe. And that East Asians survived this zoonotic death trap is answered by the blazing fire beneath the stove. When this terrifying plague wave swept across, early humans in East and West handed in starkly different answers. Europeans, entering the agricultural era, lacked any concept of sterilizing water and food, forced to endure with flesh and blood. Europeans retained the rough-and-ready habit of grabbing food with bare hands and cutting raw meat with personal daggers. In that era, lacking any disinfection awareness, mud-stained hands crammed food directly into mouths carrying thousands of deadly bacteria. This was essentially mass group suicide by poisoning. This is why Europe faced epidemics like the Black Death, with devastating casualties, and paid a heartbreaking price at the root of it all. In contrast, East Asian sapiens engraved the skill of playing with fire into their bones. As we mentioned before, East Asians formed the habit of drinking boiled water. But this fire and boiling water habit not only saved lives filtering polluted water earlier here against plague viruses, it was equally lethal. Whatever water, whatever meat, tossed straight into clay pots for a fierce, blazing stew. The rampaging parasites and pathogens in water and meat were utterly destroyed by boiling water. Countless death gods born of foodborne illness were blocked outside the stomach by this crude cooking method. Yet that wasn't enough. Facing overwhelming epidemic viruses, East Asians also deployed another form to fight death. To safely deliver piping hot life-saving food into their mouths, they casually picked up a very special tool: chopsticks. In that wild era thousands of years ago, the appearance of this gadget was the ultimate lethal move in advanced epidemic prevention. Everything beyond control, while European farmers were still using hands stained with plague bacteria to tear at black bread. East Asians held two slender wooden sticks in their hands, precisely picking cooked meat chunks out of boiling clay pots and bringing them cleanly to their mouths. Dirty things on hands couldn't even touch the edge of the food. These two seemingly unassuming sticks built an immensely tough physical defense line between dirty hands and mouths. Drinking boiled water, eating cooked food, chopsticks. With this triple blow, East Asians relied on this near-obsessive dining rule to weather the global plague sweep. Thus, from the bitter cold of the Ice Age, deadly UV rays, to the drastic dietary shifts of agriculture and the war of production, all of nature's cruel tests finally carved the final imprint onto the flesh of early East Asian humans. The final mark. When all these marks stacked together, the ultimate panorama revealed is our extremely tough yellow skin today. When you put the life or death evolutionary route of East Asians alongside Europeans and Africans, you immediately see through a cold truth. Human evolution was never a precise assembly line, but a bottomless, desperate struggle for survival. Today, when we spread out a world population map, pushing north from the furnace lie, blazing sun of the equator to the frozen Arctic Circle. To examine the faces of all humanity on this planet, you will see skin color is no sharply defined mote. It is merely a continuous spectrum, slowly transitioning on human flesh along latitude, UV intensity, and diet. Across this survival spectrum spanning thousands of kilometers, you will never find any single dividing line. In the real biological world, there is no pure yellow, absolute white, nor pure black. All colors are gradient tones scraped onto human skin by death wielding nature's blade. Since boundaries do not exist at all, what do these shades across the spectrum actually mean? These colors mere 60 to 70,000 years ago, after our common early humans left the African savanna, faced with completely different, deadly desperate situations. In different corners of the earth, they wrote the exact same survival answer with flesh and blood. Those heading to high latitudes, to let faint sunlight pierce the skin and synthesize life-saving vitamin D, were forced to shed melanin, which forged an extremely translucent white. Those remaining in the equatorial furnace to block the terrifying UV rays that could destroy folate held tightly onto their melanin, putting on a heavy-duty vest across their bodies, which forced out an extremely sun-resistant black. As for the early sapiens in East Asia's monsoon zone, they tuned their skin tone into an extremely resilient yellow. This was not only to fend off variable sunlight, but also to met a carbohydrate-heavy agricultural diet. Through the relentless slaughter of famines and plagues, they maxed out physical defense. Today, when we stand before the mirror once more, gazing quietly at this yellow skin, what you see is by no means a crude and simple category label. That is a code of survival over 10,000 years, of adaptation, and of struggle. Carved inside are the caves East Asian sapiens endured the Ice Age in, the boiled water used against plagues, and the blood shed under the scorching sun. Nature failed to erase us, we survived. This is the final answer given by this yellow skin.